topic of this video was voted for by our amazing patrons. You guys clearly have exquisite taste in MTG lore. Hello everyone and welcome back to another Lore of the Land video, brought to you by Affinity for Commander. My name is Alex and today we're looking at one of the greatest villains Theros has ever seen, Xenagos the Reveler. So without further ado, let's dive straight into this tale of debauchery. Why pray to the gods who feed on your worship? Dissolve your illusions and see the true nature of things. Theros is a plane of myths and legends, of gods and great heroes. So long as people believe, the gods rule, and their power is absolute. The seat of the pantheon rests in the realm of Nyx, a star-filled sky largely detached from the rest of Theros. This realm is primarily inhabited by the Nyx-born, creatures touched by the gods with their own power and will. Nyx is also where the gods reside, where they watch, wait, and scheme, playing with the lives of mortals as though they were nothing more than insects. Deep in the Skola Valley on the mortal side of Theros, there lived villages of satyrs, creatures who are genuinely held in high regard by the humans of the plane for their joyful nature. Some even held the belief that they may even bring good fortune. Little did they know the true nature of the satyrs. However, there was one satyr who was more detestable than the rest, who revelled and desired more than the rest. His name was Xenagos. At a young age, Xenagos began to display unsavory tendencies, a disregard for life, greed, and a longing for states of mindless indulgence. At the age of 6, Xenagos started to make attempts on the life of his own mother, a woman blinded to his evil deeds by her belief that he would rise to become someone special, someone great. But as he grew, Xenagos' desires steered him to perform more and more depraved actions. He was always longing for more pleasures from the world, in the form of feasts, parties, and celebrations. Indeed, the satyr took every chance he could for more of his wants to be satisfied. It was during one such celebration that Xenagos changed. The Bacchia was a celebration of ritual madness in the Skola Valley, one of defilement, sacrifice, and violence, performed by those who held power. During this violence and chaos, Xenagos himself was put to the brink of death, and it was at this time that his planeswalker spark ignited, transporting him far away from the lethal festivities. Traveling the multiverse, Xenagos continued his campaign of debauchery and pleasure across the multiverse, finding fresh and exciting desires in the new worlds. However, it was not long before the satyr started to become disenchanted. He looked back on his home, Theros, with new eyes. The gods there held sway over everything, and yet, outside of the plane, they held no influence, and no one knew their names. This revelation put all pleasures into perspective for the planeswalker. He now found his desires wanton, and his revels meaningless. But instead of falling into despair, Xenagos rose, and found the only way to return to his life of pleasure was to planeswalk back to his home, back to Theros. There he would find followers, believers in his cause, and he himself would rise to godhood. Once he had returned to Theros, Xenagos immediately began to set his plan into motion. He started by using his new powers and creatures which he'd gathered from across the multiverse to launch attacks on the great polis of Melatis, Akros, and Setessa. As dark eldritch forces swarmed the cities, the gods quickly descended into disarray, each blaming the others for the attacks. This provided the vital time needed for Xenagos to gather his forces, and to retire to the Satyr lands, where he rallied his people to his side and made them believe in him. Through the chaos that Xenagos had created, one god was able to see what was actually happening upon her plane. Nylea, god of the hunt, sought out Xenagos and challenged him to combat. After a brief exchange, it was clear to Xenagos that he could not win. But Nylea did not relent. She fired her bow, landing a shot straight into the planeswalker's chest. This caused a wound that would kill most mortals. But Xenagos was too close to his goal to be overcome by this. Xenagos broke the arrow's shaft and managed to escape the god, with the arrowhead still buried deep in his chest. Whilst this battle was taking place, the rest of the Pantheon continued to squabble like children, unaware of Nylea's actions. One god, however, took advantage of the confusion to advance his own agenda. Mogis, the god of slaughter, had a long-standing history of declaring war and fighting on the human plane. During the chaos, Mogis declared an attack on Akros, one of the polis that had already sustained heavy damage from Xenagos' assault. But this attack was not random. Mogis despised Akros, for its patron god was Iros, Mogis' twin brother, and he wished nothing more than to see the city crushed and swallowed by the sea. Enraged by his brother's actions, Iros descended from Nyx and engaged Mogis. The gods fought as the city was bombarded by Minotaur and human servants of the Horn God. Salvation for the people of Akros seemed lost, until yet another planeswalker arrived, this time to protect them. Elspeth Tyrell, a knight of Theros, stood to defend the city, and with her help, the people were able to drive off the attacking horde. However, the city had still taken severe damage, and the people numerous casualties. The victory party held in honor of the battle ran long into the night, and it was this exact moment that Xenagos was waiting for. Sneaking his own revelers into the celebrations, Xenagos' name took hold of the party, growing his own power further and his number of believers. It was here, at the epilogue of a conflict he had caused, that Xenagos the Reveler rose into godhood. Completely livid with the addition of a new god to the Pantheon, the other gods of Theros were quick to assign blame. Heliod, god of the sun, pointed to Elspeth, his own champion, as the cause of this. Elspeth was subsequently sent into Theros' wilderness to serve her exile, and Heliod set about plotting a strategy to remove Xenagos from his newly found position of power. However, no god may kill or harm another, as that is simply their nature. An impasse was reached, and the Pantheon seemed left with little choice. The new god of revels, however, quickly learned that to sustain himself, more power was required than what he currently held. Gathering the Nyx-born, Xenagos curtailed and used their power to sustain his godhood. This action alone caused the skies of Theros to darken and spread further chaos throughout the mortal world, much to Xenagos' complete apathy. He had now achieved what he wanted. He was a literal god. Through tactics and ambition, the Satyr had clawed his way from near death in the Scholar Valley to the pantheon of the gods themselves. Gods that had ruled over and decided his home's fate for so long, and now he sat amongst them as the god of revels. But Xenagos' ascension was not destined to last. Elspeth rallied with her mentor, Jani Goldmane, and the pair of heroic planeswalkers made their way into Nyx, armed with her spear, Godsend, a gift from her once proud sun god. They travelled to stop Xenagos before his actions could destroy the plane entirely. They met and fought the deity tirelessly, and for a time the former satyr had the upper hand, dominating the pair. But in a decisive strike, Elspeth plunged her spear, Godsend, into Xenagos' chest. This not only wounded the god dearly, but also caught and ignited the arrowhead left behind by Nylea. The combined powers of the two godly artifacts shredded Xenagos from the inside, tearing apart his very essence. Xenagos fell, dying in the realm of Nyx, amongst the gods he detested. His appetite for desire and pleasure that sought to consume all of Theros now brought to a permanent halt. Given that the realm of Nyx had become the satyr's final resting place, even the underworld of Theros was now off limits to the ravenous usurper, dashing all hopes he could ever have at a second chance of life. Thus ends the story of how one satyr's desire for pleasure and revelry nearly brought an entire plane to ruin, and all in an attempt to try and satisfy the gaping hole left behind by the understanding of his place in a vast, unyielding, and uncaring multiverse. And that's it for our lore video on Xenagos. What did you think? Were you rooting for the desired mad satyr to win, or did he go a touch too far with the partying? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more of this type of content, and feel free to follow us on Twitter, @4commander. If you would like the power to vote on what videos we do in the future, then consider becoming a patron yourself. Links are in the description. And as always, we'll see you next time.